we fought 12 wars since the Revolutionary War, and this will come of interest to you folks. We've lost, killed in action, died of disease, 1,100,000 men and women. That's quite lots of people that have died for our freedom. The worst of it was in the Civil War, was 621,000 men losing their lives. The next one that followed behind it is one that I can remember. You folks can't probably. But it was World War II, and we lost 405,000 men. Followed by World War I, which was 116,000 men. But that's what makes up that 1,100,000. There's quite a few in there that are lesser amount. But these people gave their life in the line of duty. It's our duty to honor them and to remember them. And we appreciate you coming here and helping us on doing that. So I know you got another engagement there, Brent, and you're free to go if you want.
We were going to wait.
I'll wait for the national anthem. Okay, very good. I got to get into this. Memorial Day. What does it mean to us? How did it start? It started shortly after the Civil War, when some widows from the Confederate side went out to the graves and they put flowers, mayflowers, and they put flags on the graves of their men that had died. About 1868, General John A. Logan of the Grand Army of the Republic, which is now the American Legion or something like that, he started saying this is a good idea. We need to decorate our graves and flags. So that was the beginning of Decoration Day. Now this lasted until 1971. The Congress went and they passed, they made it a holiday, and they renamed it from Decoration Day to Memorial Day. So that's the history of what we've been through all these years and how it came to pass. But the most important thing is how many men we've lost on that line. Our freedom does not come cheap at all, and it's important that we keep it. Now, I'd like to introduce a man with a great voice, and I'd like him to sing the national anthem. It's Ben Green, who is a treasurer of the Plainfield, or not a treasurer, the trustee of Plainfield Township. Please stand.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order.
Thank you very much.
Before I pray, I would like to thank Bill Brinkman for putting this program on. I think he's done a great job. I appreciate it very much, especially since the fact that this is the first time in my memory that the trustees and the Plainfield Township Board is involved. And I feel good about that. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to remember and honor those who have fallen. Lord, I am reminded of your statement saying, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. These men and women we honor today have reflected your character and have laid down their lives for others as your Son has. They have sacrificed for all of us, and we are grateful. Lord, your character reflects a high commitment to us, your children. You have created us and have committed yourself to our well-being. These men and women have reflected your character by also demonstrating a high commitment. We also thank you for prompting them to set this example. We thank you for your faithfulness that sticks with us even though we stumble. These men and women who gave their lives also reflect this faithfulness. The Marine Corps motto is Semper Fi, which means always faithful. And these men and women were faithful to serve even when the task was insurmountable. Your character of service, high commitment, and faithfulness is infinitely greater than mere humans can demonstrate. Nevertheless, we are grateful for the character of these men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, Jack. That was excellent. Now, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Plainfield Charter Township Clerk, Kathy Cosmas.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, folks, we have a great pleasure tonight to have our local VA administrator, Tracy Nelson, to speak about what is going on down at the Veterans Facility on Monroe. And we additionally have Don Preuss here he was a Vietnam veteran and is VA resident, and I'll give you the mic there, Tracy.
I usually don't need it.
Neither do I.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Tracy Nelson. I am the administrator at Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. And it occurred to me as Bill was talking, we're actually 2 years older than Decoration Day or Memorial Day. Our home has been in existence since 1886, and it was established to serve people who were coming back from the Civil War that were having difficulties reassimilating to the community. Over the years, it's changed quite a bit. Initially, I think we were 103 acres. We are now down to 93. We have over 600 volunteers who serve us regularly and accumulate more than 50,000 hours of community engagement and active activity at our home, which is incredible. For me, it's the sense of purpose that happens there, not just for our folks that live there, but the people coming in. I think the highlight of my entire career, and I've been administrator since 2002, is last year we were able to take 10 gentlemen, all of them that were wheelchair Hoyer lift dependent, on a hunting trip. And it was the first time that, the community came in, they got a Hoyer lift that was portable, took a bus up there, we had tents and a bed, and they were able to go out deer hunting. They did get 1 deer. I think really a neat story is one of our gentlemen from our memory unit came on, and people who live on our memory unit have dementia, so they don't remember really well sometimes. And he actually got the flag presented to him. And so I was talking to him about it about 3 or 4 days later, and I said, hey, what'd you think about, the trip? And I said, you got the flag? And he goes, yeah, the first time. And I said, what'd you think about hunting? And he goes, didn't shoot a damn thing, But he was able to recall that. We provide, with the help of the community, extraordinary opportunities for the men and women who live there. We've got about 240 men and 5 women. It's just amazing the things that I get to see on a daily basis. So I do have a little bit about the new home. So over time, so at our highest population, we had about 1,045 guys who lived at our home. At that point, that was like between 1910 and 1915, and it was more like a big dorm room is at least how I picture it. It wasn't necessarily people that were medically complex, but people that needed some stuff put in place in order to return back to the community. And over time, we've obviously gone from a larger size to a smaller size. In 2016, there was a work group that was done to talk about the best way to serve our veterans in our community. And at that time, it was really determined that with the advances in care and what we know today versus what we knew 20 or 30 years ago, really the ideal setting is small communities. And so the work group determined that the plan is over the next 10 to 12 years to build 7 smaller homes throughout the state that all have private rooms, private bathrooms. 5 years ago, we had about 600 guys, but we also had 4 people that shared one room plus a bathroom. And we know today that's not really good for infection control standards. I don't know about you, but right now, 2 of my kids are grown and gone, and it's just my husband, my daughter, and I, and we will fight because we're just too cramped. You put 4 guys in a small area, it's just not the most ideal setting any longer. And so the goal is to build those 7 homes. The other thing is that up until this point, we've got our home in Grand Rapids, and then we have another home in Jacobetti, which is in Marquette. And so one of the gentlemen that live with us, he only sees his wife 3 times a year because of the commute. So it was either pick veteran-centered care or your family. And so part of that work group is, you know what, let's build them throughout the home. The goal is to have no home farther than 100 miles from where anybody lives in the state, which is super exciting. And behind me, you can kind of see some of the renderings. It's, for those of you, right here is these 2 buildings, which is the McLeish and the Mann buildings, will remain. Not quite exactly sure how they're going to be used. We are working on a work plan for the legislature to do some proposals for that. We're talking about maybe another behavior unit for people with head injuries potentially, maybe some subsidized housing, maybe adult day. Lots of research has gone into it, but that's really up to the legislature. And then if you look over here, this is the new homes. This is one home, sorry, not new homes. This is one home. It's made up of 4 neighborhoods. Each neighborhood has 2 households. The households have 16 private rooms, private bathrooms. They got roll-in showers. Each household has its own distinct dining area and living area. And then it has a shared kitchen with the neighborhood. So 32 make up an entire neighborhood. And then in the center of each of those 4 neighborhoods is a community center. The community center has like a cafe, it has a chapel, it has multi-purpose rooms, and the point of it is shared space as well. So all of those rooms will have like, I don't know if it's going to be an actual barn door, but a door that slides so you can open it up to have a huge area, and a better utilization of the space. If anybody, if you're familiar with what our former APR room was and the cozy corners, when you'd be in there at night at 7 o'clock, that whole part would be vacant. This way the area will be used better. There was definitely some changes in plans. Initially, the home was supposed to be built over in the wooded area, but last spring we discovered a creek that ran through it, which made it a wetland, which made us have to change everything. Pros and cons to everything. We're going to lose the chapel, we're going to lose Cozy Corner, we're going to lose the APR. But the positive side of it is that we're still going to be able to access this building. So it's going to be a heated sidewalk where we can just roll over, still use the bowling alley that's in the basement, the ITP room where the ceramics are, all of that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. I mean, when you think about it, it's really exciting. And the fact that we're going to be able to be placed strategically throughout the state and people can age in the communities where their families and friends are is huge. So that's kind of the update. The other thing too is that we are more and more becoming more veteran-centered. So our guys are planning their menu. Like, food is always the largest complaint in any skilled facility, but even though it's better than I cook, but don't tell them that. But they're planning their own menus. Don is joining me today. He's prepared something for you, but like he's the head of our dining committee. He calls Gordon's and says, the pork chops you sent us last week are lousy. Next time, get on the ball. I mean, very, very actively engaged and really just advocating and creating the community themselves. And we're just kind of standing by and supporting as best as we can. And so without further ado, by the way, he is not a Vietnam vet. He is from Korean War area. That was my mistake, not Bill's. But Don's has prepared something for you, so come on up. Oh, completion is scheduled for mid-2021, so about 2 years away.
My name is Don Cruz, and I live at the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. And I am a veteran. Many of you are also veterans. So together, we share the responsibility, the duty, and the honor of consecrating this memorial service to the women and men who served their country and lost their lives while doing so. They fought and died, but only we taste victory and freedom. Their freedom is of a higher kind. Their bodies and blood are still in the hull of the USS Arizona, the beaches of Normandy, the sands of Iwo Jima, the jungles of Korea, the rice paddies of Vietnam, and now the deserts of the Middle East. Yes, they died, but we live. We live to let everyone realize that they did not die in vain. This is the land of the free because of the brave. We can still hear their voices, see their faces, and hear their marching steps. We gave everything we could. They gave it all. They gave their lives for our freedom. That freedom has a flavor all its own, known only to those who fought for it. And as President John F. Kennedy so proudly proclaimed, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. We did it, they did it. We deserve to be proud. On November 19, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln delivered the greatest memorial speech ever at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I would like to honor that speech now. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. And that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. God bless all of us. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Now we have, comes my big time, and that's where I have to, as the treasurer of the township, I read a citation for a Congressional Medal of Honor to a staff sergeant that gave his life. His name is Atkins Travis. And I'll read you the citation of it because it speaks very highly of what our young men have done for us. For conspicuous gallantry and bravery at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Staff Sergeant Travis W. Atkins distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and bravery above and beyond the call of duty on 1 June 2007 while serving in the position of squad leader with Company D, 2nd Battalion, 14th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 10th Mountain Division, in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. While manning a static observation post in the town of Abu Samak, Iraq, Staff Sergeant Atkins was notified that 4 suspicious individuals walked in 2 pairs were crossing an intersection not far away from his position. Staff Sergeant Atkins immediately moved his squad to interdict the individuals. One of the individuals began behaving erratically, prompting Staff Sergeant Atkins to disembark from his patrol vehicle and approach to conduct a search. Both individuals responded belligerently towards Staff Sergeant Atkins, who then engaged the individual he had intended to search in hand-to-hand combat. Staff Sergeant Atkins tried to wrestle the insurgent's arms behind his back when he noticed the insurgent was reaching for something under his clothes. Staff Sergeant Atkins immediately wrapped him in a bear hug and threw him on the ground, away from his fellow soldiers. Staff Sergeant Atkins maintained his hold on the insurgent, placing his body on top of him, further sheltering the patrol. With Staff Sergeant Atkins on top of him, the insurgent detonated a bomb strapped into his body, killing Staff Sergeant Atkins. Staff Sergeant Atkins acted with complete disregard for his own safety in this critical and selfless act of valor. Staff Sergeant Atkins saved the lives of 3 other soldiers who were with him and gallantly gave his life for his country. Staff Sergeant Atkins' undoubted courage, warrior spirit, and steadfast devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, and the United States Army. That sort of struck me because on 11 July 1950, when I reported to Fort Riley, Kansas, I reported to the 10th Mountain Division for basic training. Bad thing about it was that we had was of that training company, we were early in the Korean War, we lost 40% killed in action, so it was pretty heavy. Now, a wreath will be placed on the Veterans Monument by Plainfield Charter Township Trust, our clerk, Kathy Postmas. Thank you, Kathy. Now, the Sons of American Legion will fire a volley and sound taps.
Forward, arms. Left face. Forward, mark. Left, 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 right, left, left. Fire! Fire! Present, arms.
Please be seated.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above.
And honor them, and that's what I leave you with. I thank you for coming tonight. I hope that you have a safe trip home. And let's see, tell your neighbors about it. Let's have the whole area filled up, because this is a type of remembrance and honor that we need to give to our 1,100,000 men that have gave their lives. Thank you for coming, folks.